Alright, what's going on, you guys? It's your boy 360 and the Stain Baby representing TKOG. Actually, I'm Power Shuffle. I'm actually continuing with something that I used to do a lot. Stopped doing it because it wasn't really getting views, but I'm going to start doing it again, see if you guys like it. It's testing decks against hand traps and fully established boards. And instead of doing the build a board or break a boards where I actually pick the hand, I'm just going to draw the hands randomly to give you guys a more realistic feel. This is one of my favorite decks of all time. I'm testing dolls. I just did some vids on them playing through 2 to 3 hand traps. It was stuff like Dro, Lancia, Ash, Veiler, and Gamma. And then I threw them in pretty much in the ring against Drytrons and Tri-Brigades, and they actually were able to consistently break the full boards that those decks make. And now, since I didn't have time to get in the video, I'm going to do them against DRAGONLINKs. It should have been DRAGONLINKs and Prank Kids, but I got the DRAGONLINK board here. Against Prank Kids, it's literally do they have hand traps or not, because they cannot afford to summon Butler because they play too much in the SHADDOLL Fusion. So they normally always have to play Weather Watcher to just play around SHADDOLL Fusion. And with you having Super Poly and Alistair, it's even easier to out Butler. So against Prank Kids, it's more of just a battle against hand traps than the actual deck. And since I already did SHADDOLLs versus hand traps, I just felt like it was just redundant to do that. So now we're just testing against the board that DRAGONLINK often will end on is going to be Tidying, Seal, and Savage. A lot of the times they're actually ending on just Seal, Tidying, because most of the lists I've been seeing, they just really aren't that powerful. But they have a lot of resource management, or resource management, not even. They have a lot of resources that they can get for their follow-ups. And they also just get so much critical mass and can set so much up in grave that if they can just survive for a turn, they can OTK you through critical mass. But the end boards are not as scary as they used to be. Still pretty scary sometimes. I mean, there might even be a hot red next to the Savage at times, but since a lot of times they elect to summon Chaos Ruler and then go into their Quad Boral and then make Savage, a lot of times they're just ending on Savage, Seal, Tidying. So let's draw hand number 1. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel. I would appreciate it. There's a lot of ways you can support this channel. They're all in the description box of every single video I upload. I copy pasted in every video, so you cannot miss it. There are multiple ways you can do it. I greatly appreciate it if you guys did support the channel. It's optional, so you don't really have to do it if you don't want to. Let's go ahead and get started. We're drawing Meltdown. I haven't drawn Falco all day, so Falco, Windy, SHADDOLL Fusion, Alistair, and a Deer Servant. Oh, only thing that would have made it worse if there was a Droplet or a Super Poly, but this is just adding insult to injury here. So I guarantee to you guys right now, if I activate Meltdown or Alistair, they have to use Savage. They really don't have a choice at all. Otherwise, Macabre gets online, and then they have to burn more than they want to. You want to save Seal to actually play around SHADDOLL Fusion, so you don't want to preemptively use Seal. So Savage is your more expendable interruption. So let's say if I activated Meltdown, they could technically chain Seal, right? But then the issue is, if there's nothing for Tidying to Bouncing Grave when I activate SHADDOLL Fusion, they don't have a choice, and basically what they would want to do is use the Savage to negate either the Meltdown or the Alistair. You don't want to use Seal to bounce either or. Like I said, you want to hold Seal to actually play around SHADDOLL Fusion. So what I would do here with this hand is I would start by normal summoning Alistair. Because even, let's say they let Alistair resolve and I grabbed Invocation and they just wanted to use Seal to force Macabre out, they let me get my Invoked Engine online, and now all they have left is Borreload Savage, and the Tidying, which means now Tidying has to bounce this, and they'd rather bounce what Seal summons so that they can get more value that way. So Alistair forces Savage, or Meltdown forces Savage. It literally, it's going to happen either way. So let's say I just activate Meltdown, it forces Savage. So then I would just normal summon Alistair, activate the effect, grab myself a copy of Invocation, and now they have options here, so they could use Seal to bounce Alistair, but the thing is Invocation confused from hand. And if I have a light in my hand, I can still make Makaba at the cost of more resources, but is it really worth it, you know? Like, that's why this deck always really had a good Dragon Link matchup. I remember playing against Dragon Link when it was more popular, and I always, like, I was so confident that I would just let them go first. As long as I didn't brick, I knew I could break their boards. So we'd summon Alistair, it would dissolve. So what they would have to do is they pretty much would have to seal before I summon my Makaba. So they probably would just seal to bounce. And I would think... I don't think I would chain El Shaddol Fusion to that. I would just let it ride. So, chain seal, tribute for cost. Bounce Alistair. Sever chain seal, summon something. Tiding can use that now. So Alistair goes to hand. And what I would do... thinking on whether or not I activate El Shaddol Fusion. I can make Op Cologne with the L. Nah, what I would do from that point is I'll just activate Invocation. Yeah. I would activate Invo. Send Alistair from hand, banish their seal. Summon Makaba. And if you guys want to play out some more scenarios, because I know how it gets at these videos, if Seal bounces Meltdown, Alistair has to be negated by Savage. If Savage negates Meltdown, Alistair has to be bounced by Sealed. If Savage negates Alistair, Seal has to bounce Meltdown. If Savage negates Meltdown, Seal has to bounce Alistair. There's no way around it. There's no way around it, period. Both these cards have to be answered. So there's no, like, oh, it's biased. You're playing to make it, like, more favorable in your advantage, but this is just how it is. Like, these have to be responded to. Like, this has to be responded to because I'm playing Shaddolls. And you can't let this stay up, because now, let's say I summon Op Cologne using Dragon, I can permanently negate this and pop this with Dragon, and they can't chain any of them. So they've lost all their interruptions because they did not respond to this card. If they do not negate Alistair, I get Makaba. If they let Alistair resolve and I summon Makaba and they try to use a seal, I still have my Invoke engine, so it's going to be harder to grind against me. So these cards, unfortunately, have to be answered. So I'd make Makaba by banishing the seal, resolving the Invocation. And even though I didn't banish Alistair with Invocation, I can use Schism to banish this, and then Invocation add it for my next turn, so I still get the follow-up for my Invoke engine. I would just have to wait. So we have Makaba up online. We're just looking at Savage and Tiding. Tiding is still active, and I do not have a trap to negate it. So from here, I could go in a battle phase to attack the dragon that they summoned off Seal, but they, no matter what, they would still have a target for Tiding. So what I would do here is, yeah, I would activate L. I don't want to get rid of Makaba. I want to keep him there as a threat. So I would send Falco and Windy. Summon Op Cologne in the extra monster zone. Chainlink 1 Windy. Chainlink 2 Falco. Chainlink 3 Op Cologne to target this. So his counter would fall off and he would lose his attack boost. And he won't be a threat next turn either. They'd probably let this resolve and then on resolution use Tiding to bounce off, because you can't let this hit the grave, because that means I get Shaddol Fusion to my hand. So now they have to bounce this. So I remember saying it in a video, but I'm going to repeat myself. When you play against this deck, there is a sense of inevitability that you will see it oftentimes. And it goes like this. You don't have a choice but to negate this, because if you don't negate this, another card's going to come out that's either going to nullify your negate, or it's going to bring out a card that your negate can no longer play around. So if they don't Tiding bounce this and I add Shaddol Fusion to my hand, now they literally, I activate Shaddol Fusion, now they're going to chain Tiding, right? They're going to bounce this to make sure that they don't have an extra deck, like to make sure that they don't have an extra deck card, so I have to fuse, and I could still just fuse from my hand with Shaddol Fusion. And since this is a light, in theory, I can make Construct, because these are going to give me materials. So even though I can't fuse from my deck, Shaddol Fusion will still resolve, and they basically have not got to stop anything. So again, a sense of inevitability. So this is going to come out. Windy's gonna resolve, and I would definitely at this point summon Aerial, just so I can get, because I feel like I have enough critical mass here. So grabbing Aerial, or better yet, yeah, I think I should grab Squamata for future El Shaddol fusion plays. So summon Squamata. If they don't tidy to bounce this, I get Shaddol fusion. Now, if they let this resolve and I get Shaddol fusion, they'll tidying to bounce their extra deck monster, and then I'll just fuse from field. So I still resolve it. Construct still gets summoned. I still get advantage. They're not gonna stop Schism. They lose to Schism. So you decide. You know, like, do I bounce this card now or do I wait? Now, if I was a DRAGONLINK player, I would bounce it now so that I don't get access to Shaddol fusion at all. And in theory, because my card is unknown, I would just be ending on these with a Macabre, which is not as bad as Shaddol fusion resolving. So yeah, they would have to tidying to bounce this. And then we would just activate the Deer. Dump the Op Cologne. We would add Ecclesia. And then we'd use Op Cologne's effect. This is why I know people literally hate on me for playing Core. I actually have been made fun of in a few videos for playing this, but it's reasons like this why I still always play this card. It plays around so much. Now I can add Core. So resolving Op, you have to add either from your deck or your grave. And if you added something to your hand, you have to discard. And since I don't want to discard Ecclesia, I now get to, just by playing Core, which is a bad card, I get to add my El Shaddol fusion back and make sure that even though I don't have Schism, I still have a way to make a window on my opponent's turn and get the full value out of my Nadir Servant. And I actually should be able to, not OTK, but I should be able to put a lot of damage onto the field. Since this is no longer a threat, I don't even have to kill this. I would just set up maximum interruptions. So what I would do is I would actually grab myself a copy of Punishment, so this would be in defense. And then you would break the DRAGONLINK board. You'd have Punishment and L. And when you resolve Punishment, you can actually dump Op Cologne, use Op Cologne's effect, add a copy of Hedgehog, discard it, Hedgehog to search a Shaddol, so now this has a negate. And the only thing is, like, the way you have to play it out now is you don't use Schism to banish Alistair, so you're not going to get, you know, Alistair back next turn. But if you're activating Punishment, it's not going to be used next turn anyways. So long story short, you break the DRAGONLINK board, you end on multiple interruptions and follow-ups. And you do it with ease a lot of the times. So if I reset this board, and let's say I just slap, I don't know, a Crystal Wing, just to make things worse. Let's see if I can break it then. Or let's call this Hot Red, because I think they end on Hot Red way more. I don't even think they play Crystal Wing. So we might as well just call that Hot Red. So now they have 2 Omni Negates plus 2 bounces, which should make things a lot more difficult for me. The only deck that I would really say me playing against Shaddolls that I would worry about is playing against Drytrons and not drawing a Super Poly or a Droplets or a Dark Ruler. But since that's 9 cards that you can draw, you still, you know, you have a high probability of drawing one of those. That's like the only deck that you really just can't beat unless you draw a specific card. Other decks, like, you can just draw Invoked, Dogmatica, and Shaddol cards and just use them to break the board and make one of your own in the process. So now, let's see, we're drawing, that's already a good start. We're drawing Alistair, we're drawing Shaddol Core, we're drawing Invocation, we're drawing Droplets. I need a Shaddol starter. Okay, that's good enough. And Nadir Servant. So we drew Alistair, Invoke, Ecclesia, and Nadir, plus Droplets and Core. That's still good enough to do some damage. So how far can I get? Let's see. So let's go ahead and summon our Alistair. Has to be negated, right? There's no choice involved. Because you'll lose more by choosing to hold your negates and then using something to interact with Macabre and then using something to negate his effect. Because you're giving me my invoked engine, which means I have follow-up plays for Alistair now. So has to be negated, right? What I would do in this situation is I would chain Droplets, I would send Core and Ecclesia and Alistair. Thinking, or Invocation, because this is going to resolve and give me an Invocation. So I could just send these three, right? I hit 1, 2, 3. They can't respond with monster spell or traps, so I literally get basically a spell speed 4 droplet. There's nothing that they can respond to right now. Like, they can't use anything to respond to my droplets. So Alistair resolves, and all they have left now is the summon off spheres and the bounce off tidy. And if they bounce tidying, I can still just use Alistair as a fusion material from hand. So we add Invocation. And now we have to break the board. You bait the negates, you still have to break the board. That's super important. So we'd activate Invocation. I think on res they'd probably just resolve Seal's effect to summon so that they have something better to bounce off tidying for a follow-up. And then when you activate Invocation, they might let it slide and just bounce what you summon, hoping that you don't have a trap. It's, you know, it's like, it's up to them. So you'd banish. You'd summon the Macabre. Effect to add Alistair. They'd probably tidying to bounce this so that they don't have to worry about it. So that Macabre cannot threaten them, because Macabre can attack over these. And even though I negate these with droplet, as long as these stay on the field, they're still bodies, especially Hot Red for a negate. So this is a negate I have to kill now. Savage loses his counters and his negates. So like Hot Red is something I have to kill like now. I can't afford for Savage to actually stay. So we would Nadir. I dump off Cologne so I can get Shaddol follow-ups. Add Ecclesia from graveyard to hand, since we send off droplets. Op Cologne would resolve. And since you have no Shaddolls in hand, you can't really afford to go for L. You would actually add Schism. And since, like I said, we really have to out that Hot Red, we unfortunately have to discard the Alistair. So now we're going to reveal and summon Ecclesia, and we're going to go ahead and grab ourselves a copy of Fleur de Lis. And what is this going to do, you guys? So what this is going to allow me to do is attempt to activate Schism and respond to Hot Red targeting Schism with my Fleur de Lis. You're not going to use Fleur de Lis right now. You should not. You want to hold your Fleur de Lis so that when you activate Schism on their turn, they're going to try to negate it with Hot Red. You're going to obviously respond to an effect that summons. You're going to chain Flare, negate the Hot Red, summon Winda, send something, force them into their battle phase, buy yourself a turn. Next turn, you can just Schism, summon Construct, and just start generating advantage. So you're just going to pretty much chunk block, buy yourself a turn. That's all you need. So you've broken it 2 times out of 2. We're going to do one more attempt and then end the video, because I do 3 attempts. Alright, so let's do the next one. I feel like I need a power shuffle. I don't want to draw too many of the same cards, especially, I think both attempts I drew too many of the same cards like I drew. Alistair and Meltdown and like Alistair, Invo, Nadir, Ecclesia. I mean, it's consistency. It's not a bad thing, but you obviously want variety, especially when going second. It sucks to draw duplicates going second because you really want to access all 3 of your engines, and you want every card to have a different name, so if one gets negated, you can just, you know, use something else. Unless it's like a Nadir and they Ghost Bell it, for example, then you can activate another one. But other than that, having Meltdown and Alistair is really not that helpful. The only time it's good is when it's like Alistair plus Invocation. So I'll reset. And this is not a joke, like, I don't really expect to always break this board, but if I could even get close, that's good enough for me. So we're drawing L, Nadir, Punishment, Super Poly, Alistair, and Alistair. So we drew duplicates anyways. This one's a little tough. No Shaddolls right now. Nadir equals a Shaddol starter, actually, so what we'll do... Honestly, I freaking love this card. I ain't gonna lie, you guys, that card's crazy. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna summon Alistair. I feel like holding Savage is better, so you would probably want to use Hot Red to negate Alistair. What we would do then is chain Super Poly, because you want to hold Savage as an Omni negate, because it can negate cards anywhere, and that's just how it works, so you have the Hot Red. So we would chain Alistair, chain Super Poly. We would discard the... Honestly, we'd probably want to hold a Monster negate. So we discard the SHADDOLL fusion, because Punishment, I think, is better right now for this situation. And we'd fuse off the seal, summon a Macabre. Hot Red's been baited, and Alistair resolves because it misses. Hot Red misses its target, and we'll grab ourselves a copy of Invocation. And now we have Macabre plus another way to summon Macabre, which is dope, honestly. So what we'll do next is we'll activate Invocation, which either Savage is going to negate or not. I feel like Savage really just has to negate it. Like, he really does. You already are looking at Macabre. So they don't know that I have another monster. So, like, if they let this Invocation resolve, and I get another monster in my hand via Invocation giving me back the banished Alistair, now Savage can't really do anything, you know? Because you're just negate and banish it. So you probably want to chain, and just, you have to play the gamble sometimes. You just have to Invocation. And for the simple fact that I know I'm going to get this back and also get rid of the Savage completely, I believe that it would be good to chain Macabre to negate and banish the Savage, because it actually takes it off the field, and now the only card they could bounce with Tidying would be Hot Red. And I'm not really so concerned about Tidying, you know? So yeah, I would just use Macabre to negate and banish the Savage by discarding the other Alistair, banish Alistair and the seal, summon another copy of Macabre. And drawing Punishment for turn actually is really nice because it helps me to play around that Tidying so that if I don't want it to resolve, I don't have to let it resolve. I'm going to add Alistair back. So we have double Macabre now, which is nuts. And what we're going to do now is we're going to follow up the Nadir. So this is just Invoke Dogmatica breaking the board with the Super Poly, of course. So Nadir for Ecclesia. Effect of Op-Cologne. So Tidying can threaten you in the sense that it can actually bounce Op-Cologne back to the extra deck from the grave so that Schism doesn't have a SHADDOLL to fuse with. That's why I was saying it actually is pretty handy that we added Punishment or that we drew it, because otherwise we'd probably have to add it so that they couldn't, you know, like Tidying to bounce your Op-Cologne. So Op-Cologne's effect would add Schism because again we drew no dolls this time. And I would say because I'm thinking like Hot Red is still there. I mean, we have Macabres. Well, we need a monster to negate the Hot Red. So one Macabre can negate Tidying, the other can negate the Hot Red and make sure Schism resolves. So I'm just thinking of what I discard. I feel like if I discard Alistair, it'd be better because Ecclesia can summon herself and give me a Fleur de Lis. So yeah, I would just do that.
Where you at?
So yeah, I would just discard the Alistair. Sorry about the background noise, you guys. So I discard the Alistair. I would summon the Ecclesia. I think they'd probably chain Tidying. They would probably chain Tidying because they know I could add a trap and negate this. So they'd probably chain Tidying just to be able to deny me the Schism setup. Because any smart player knows that like Schism is crazy against this deck, and they know that Tidying can bounce the Op-Cologne just so that my Schism won't threaten them. Because I think it's easier for them to play through Macabres than it is to play through Winda. You know, they could at least bait these, but Winda they just lose to, right? Especially because it'll send Hot Red. So I think they would chain Tidying just in case, you know, because it would either A, it would actually nullify Schism, or B, in their mind, they feel like they would force me to discard my Schism just to negate Tidying. But I feel like that's redundant, because why would I discard Schism to protect me basically from a card that would make sure Schism wouldn't resolve? Because then if I don't have Schism in hand, I don't care if Op-Cologne gets bounced or not. So I definitely think they would chain Tidying to bounce Op-Cologne in grave. I would then chain the freshly summoned Macabre, banish the Tidy, and the Ecclesia will resolve, and we would add ourselves a copy of Fleur de Lis. I wouldn't actually summon it, I would just hold it in hand. And there you have it. You've set up double Macabre. Probably better to summon this in defense. Probably better to summon both these in defense since you're not attacking this turn, and you'd have Schism plus, you know, a negate, which is really, really, really good. So yeah, we got a 3 for 3, you guys. We actually broke the board all 3 times. It sucks we didn't draw any doll cards. It would have been a lot more fun using some Shaddolls. But the deck is just that powerful, you guys, that you can use 1 or 2 of the 3 engines and still just break boards like that. Like, that's not a joke. That's 2 negates, 2 Omni negates plus 2 bounces being dismantled by just some Dogmatica invoke cards. It's pretty nice. And that is going to wrap the video up. God bless you guys and make good choices. Don't hurt your brain cells. Stay tuned for future content. And yep, I'm signing out. Peace.